Hello and welcome to Total IELTS, and in today's lesson I'll be looking at how to write an introduction for Writing Task 2. Specifically, I'll be looking at what to include and what not to include in your introduction. And here is the task we're using for this lesson. We used this task earlier in a video for planning Task 2, and it's one of the most challenging Task 2 types. It's discuss these views and give your own opinion. So let's begin with what not to include. Many students or candidates begin writing Task 2 with a general statement where they discuss the topic, and the topic here is environmental problems. So they might begin with something like this. The world today faces many environmental challenges that threaten our very existence. So why are students including this type of general discussion statement, which is sometimes called the academic hook? In my experience, I've seen hundreds of examples of this type of practice, and when I asked students and teachers and fellow examiners, their answer was always the same. The answer was that students were trained to do this in high school and college. They are trained to start by identifying the topic and discuss it in one or two sentences. And what is the purpose of this general statement? Well, again, the answer was something like making an interesting or dramatic start, get the examiner's attention, and it shows the examiner that you understand the topic. There are some sources that say that the practice of this is trying to impress the examiner. However, I think this is quite an unfair comment because students are only doing what they've been trained to do. So what is the effect of this discussion of topic or academic hook? Well, first of all, there's no extra points for interesting or dramatic openings. It's really not necessary. This is an IELTS essay. It's not a high school or college assignment. And it certainly does not impress the examiner and can actually have the opposite effect. Most examiners actually just ignore this academic hook, but some actually see it as irrelevant and therefore a waste of time. So don't begin your answer with a discussion of the topic or academic hook, because it's not necessary and irrelevant. So let's look at what to include in your introduction. You should always begin writing Task 2 with a paraphrase of the task statement. Paraphrase is rewriting the task statement using synonyms, that's similar words or phrases, or changing the form of the word, for example, from a verb to a noun. It's also using different grammatical structures, but when you use all of these, you keep the same meaning. Sometimes the statement will have the names of people and places, and it's not necessary to change these. So why should we paraphrase? Well, in IELTS, copying complete sentences or even parts of sentences from the original statement will be deducted from your word count. Paraphrase also shows the examiner that you have understood the task. And when you use more complex sentences, this will have a positive effect on your grammatical range and accuracy. When you do paraphrase, don't focus only on synonyms or individual words. Paraphrase parts of the sentence or chunks. Here, for example, the original statement has been divided into several parts or chunks. So for example, the original statement says, while some people consider, and you can paraphrase it like this: it is believed by some that. Again, global warming can be paraphrased into the rise in the Earth's temperature. The next part of the sentence says, to be the most critical environmental problem we have now. And you can paraphrase it like this: is the greatest environmental issue these days. And finally, the end of the sentence says, others believe that overpopulation has a more devastating impact on our world, which can be paraphrased, whereas there are those who contend that overpopulation is more damaging. And here is the final paraphrase of the original statement. You can pause the video here and read it in your own time. After you've paraphrased the task statement, next thing you need to include is your thesis statement. And this is a statement of intent or purpose. In other words, what you're going to write about. It also should include your position or opinion in response to the task. Each thesis statement is different for each question type. This question type is discuss both these views and give your own opinion. So it's a combination of a discussion and opinion task. Begin your thesis statement with the purpose. That is what you will do in this essay. And here is an example of two purposes. I will discuss both points of view and give my own opinion, or this essay will discuss both viewpoints and include the writer's opinion. Now, some sources say that you should avoid using pronouns, for example, I and my. However, remember that this is only a recommendation and not an IELTS requirement, so pronouns are acceptable. After your purpose, you should state your opinion or position. This is a main requirement for task response criterion. For example, in Band 7 says, presents a clear position throughout the response. And the key word here is throughout. So stating your position clearly in the introduction and staying with this position throughout your answer is the way to go. Now, there are several positions you can take for this task type. First of all, analyze the main topic, and it is what is the greatest threat to the environment. When you take your position, you can either completely agree it's global warming or overpopulation. In other words, completely agree with one of the viewpoints. Or you can say it's a combination of both. Or you can give a completely different reason, for example, deforestation. Now, when you decide on your position, take into account time management. If you agree with both viewpoints, this will mean you will be writing a very long essay and you need to give different supporting details for both sides. It's actually more manageable to just have one opinion, and I would recommend either agreeing with one viewpoint only or stating a completely different reason. When you do state your position in the introduction, don't give details, supporting details or reasons why. Save these for your body paragraphs. Here's an example thesis statement for agreeing with one of the viewpoints. This essay will discuss both viewpoints and include the writer's opinion as to why global warming or overpopulation, either one or the other, is the most serious environmental issue. And here's an example for giving a completely different reason. This essay will discuss both viewpoints and include the writer's opinion as to why deforestation is the most serious environmental issue. So, in summary, how to write an introduction for Writing Task 2. Your introduction has two parts. Part 1 is a paraphrase of the task statement, and the second part is your thesis statement. Your introduction doesn't include a general discussion of the topic or the so-called academic hook. The academic hook can be judged as irrelevant, and there's no extra marks for interesting, dramatic statements. It certainly won't impress anyone and can actually have the opposite effect. When you paraphrase, rewrite the task statement but keep the same meaning. Use synonyms, that's words or phrases with similar meaning. Change the form of the word from verb to noun, for example, and try to use different grammatical structures. After this, the thesis statement, and this is a statement of intent or purpose, basically what you're going to write about. And it also includes your position. Thesis statements are different for each question type, but they all contain a statement of intent or purpose, and thesis statements can include pronouns. They are acceptable. In your thesis statement, always include your position. When you do decide on your position, take into account time management, and don't include any supporting details or reasons for your opinion in the introduction. Here's an example of a full introduction where the position is agreeing with one of the viewpoints. You can pause here and read in your own time. And here's an example of a full introduction where the position is giving your own reason.